Hello, everybody. Anna Sabramwoods here from eLearner Engaged. I hope you're having a wonderful week. We're having another amazing long weekend here in Canada, May long. It's just been stunning. I've been working, of course, but I get out there. Some friends visited and I get to show them around town. It took about 10 minutes because I live in a very remote, tiny community. So it was really good though because everybody wants to visit you on holidays because you live in a great part of the world. Now, the two things I want to talk to you about today are going to be one about the virtual reality, and it was about the idea that whenever you have a new interface, especially something as physically engaging as virtual reality, what happens is that still what we're trying to combat is the idea that a learner, a user, has to learn how to use the interface to engage with different parts of the learning. So right now, if you just have a headset with VR, at least the one that I have, which is just basically you pop your phone in and you're doing that. There's no hand controllers, anything. So what happens is you use your face or use your head to make selections. So you kind of look a little goofy, but you're doing a lot of neck working and pointing to be able to make things play and move and things like that, right? So one of the things that was brought up during the VR conference that Ryan went to was the idea that, if you're training people on real tasks, then what you wanted to create is not necessarily, you're never going to prepare, let's say, an astronaut to be separated from their ship and be ready for the darkness and vastness and fear of space. However, what you want to do is help them build the muscle memory so that when they are in panic mode, they have something to fall back on. Now, the worst thing to do is to create a muscle memory that includes you accessing a database or something, or a menu turning to your left or something like that. Like, imagine trying to create an environment where even when you're trying to create muscle memory, the menu and the limitations of that software, of that interface, are not really helping you augment this person's performance in the real world, because they now are learning how to move a certain way to accommodate the interface itself. So that's kind of interesting. That's an obstacle, obviously, because one of the things that they also talked about during the conference was this idea that you have to have both, especially with things, let's say, like HoloLens, where it's mixed reality or augmented reality, right? Where the HoloLens is able to see your hand movements and maybe, and I'm totally guessing here, but what it does is it's able to see your hand movements, and those movements indicate what you want to do with a menu or whatever. And so, but what you're relying there is on the HoloLens to recognize everybody's hands and recognize everybody's movement as what it is. And they were talking about the bloom and things like that, where opening up things, there's specific movements now that are associated with these interfaces. And so how do you accommodate for people who aren't doing it the right way, who aren't swiping the right way? It's like learning to use the iPad, the natural touch, the natural gestures. And some people, 2 fingers, to scroll. Those are things that we have to learn, but that's in the context of an iPad, right? And now you're learning it in the context of data manipulation. And so it would be different than moving on to trying to master real life tasks that have nothing to do with system recognizing your hands, that you're actually out in a spaceship working on something and you want to be able to do it well. So I thought that was really cool, just to consider all those things. And also, when you get a chance, check out id4vr.org. Ryan, my partner, has set that up. He's gathering information now to kind of start this community of people who are thinking about these things deeply. The other, and sign up or submit your own suggestion. I think that'd be great. Now, the other piece I was talking about today, one of my scenario design students is she's just plugging along, really working hard on this, thinking about different things, and I'm glad I'm getting the feedback because it's really helping me make this course as realistic as possible to people's needs. I like, you always start out with this pinnacle of, the perfect world has all these resources and access. And in the real world, I have these constraints. So instead of thinking that they are from the place of lack, I'm trying to think from the place of, hey, this is better than zero. What can we do with this resource? And I really like that. It's forced me to think that way, and it'll help me make a better initial setup for how to get these projects started if you have different resources than optimal. So one of the things that actually came up in conversation, and I suggest you do this as well if you haven't already, I'm sure a lot of you have, is I talk about this a lot, the idea of models, the idea of instructional models. And one of the first people that I really had kind of introduced me to models was Steve Lee, who is the co-founder, I believe, of Michael Allen Interactions. Sorry, it's Allen Interactions. And really, he just talked about the idea that everything out there there's repetitive interactions that you can use in multiple ways because they're all models. They're basically, think about them as games. If you want to create a memory game, your model would be, let's say, a memory game would be Jeopardy. That's a memory game model. And then a scenario, let's say, is a decision and consequence game model. And so even then, from then, it branches to be other things depending on your learning need. And one of the things that came up recently at a workshop that I was at, actually even was for Articulate Storyline. And one of the developers there shared her, it was Trina. She's a part of the Articulate community. If you go into Articulate Heroes, you'll see her contributing there because she's just a wonderful lady and a really smart lady too. So Trina has basically, and she's done this over the years because I think that as we refine our craft, what we realize is that, we're not trying to reinvent things from scratch. We are trying to select the best pieces and find where they apply over and over again. So that's what she did. She created a table, and I've had the same thing. Basically, an inventory of activities that she's already used in the past, pulled them out from her projects, and then inventoried them. When would I use them? And Ryan and I did that as well, and it saved us the time staring at the blank page, right? But what it also did is actually helped us get more creative, because sometimes you forget that you have a different kind of activity that you can use to spice up an interaction a little bit, add a little bit more nuance, or share information in a way that somebody would find engaging because you're asking them for their input. So what I suggest is you go back to your projects, you go out into the community, see some good examples, and then just observe interactions, and you're like, oh, that really works. And where would I use that? Can I just take a picture of that, put it in a table, and then say, okay, I would use this interaction to help people learn this kind of skill, this kind of skill, this kind of skill, help apply this. And then what happens is then you and your team have a common language that you can then go back to and say, hey guys, remember this interaction? My learning goal is this, so let's do this one. Let's maybe change the skin and maybe add, make it look a little different. But underneath the mechanics of it, it'll work here, and let's do that. And I think really when you think about it, I think that's why Michael Allen has also been so successful, is because they've taken the time to identify what these models are. What are these learning games, mechanics that, and then really fleshed out where they add value the most, and then doubled down on that and said, okay. And if you look at a lot of his work, there are some commonalities. They're just very good at creating custom interfaces and and adding story and all those things that later embellish and make something more than it is because of all the sum of its parts. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you have a chance, you have a question, or you have a model that you're like, oh, I want to share this, I think this will be good, or you have questions about anything I said, please comment below or send me an email, Anna@eLearnerEngaged. And I hope to see you next time. Take care, friend.